one to Series 2, Episode 12. How is everyone going tonight? Let's have a quick look and see who is in the chat room. Let's have a little look. See here. Let me have a look. Who have we got? Say hello if you're in the chat room so I can see you. Julie, first and foremost. Woohoo. Welcome, welcome. DTY, hello, hello. Howdy to John Baxter, all the way from South Australia. Welcome. And Oz Fox, all the way from Victoria. How are you going, Oz Fox? Good to see you tonight. And Kitty Catch, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. That's awesome. Hey, and all the way from Texas in America, Houston, Texas, Dave, my newest Patreon. Thanks for joining us, mate. Very early for you over there in Texas. Thank you. Alrighty, Darren Archer up in Queensland. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we can keep you entertained a little this evening. And Elaney joining us on YouTube. Thank you for taking the time. That's awesome. Thank you. Team Casho is here as well. That's wicked cool. Alrighty, we got Matt Godwin in the chat room on Facebook. Thank you very much. And Hev Walker, thank you. That is cool. Thank you for joining us. Who else have we got? Oh, Fitzy from ACT. Thank you. And Mel. Nice. Thank you. And Andrew Bush, all the way from New Zealand. Thanks for joining us, mate. That's great. That's awesome. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And welcome to the replay viewers and listeners. Thank you for joining. Tonight, I have three very special guests who have agreed to put themselves out there in the public forum. I know you're all a respectful bunch of people, as geocachers usually are, and I'm not expecting any sledging or, disrespectful comments tonight. So any smart assery and you'll be kicked out, let me tell you. We will not tolerate any disrespectful behaviour. So thank you for being respectful to our guest tonight. Feel free to chat amongst yourself, but it is a children's show, so keep it PG, of course. The moderator is keeping an eye out for any disrespectful language or behaviour, and they will kick you out. So, yes, please be respectful. Thank you, moderator, for doing that job. Tonight, we have another winner for the GDU calendar photo of the month. So stay tuned for the announcement at the end of the show for that one. We also have another 2 awesome prizes thanks to John and Di, our friends and our sponsor at geostuff.com.au. Stay tuned for the draw. That will be towards the end of the show, and it will be worth it. If you were keeping an eye on the socials, you will have seen what is up for grabs, and it is pretty awesome. Awesome. Okay, so thank you to all of our Patreons, and a special thanks to Lainey at LK Consulting Group for the marketing, mentoring, and coaching program. Couldn't do it without you. Geostuff.com.au for their ongoing support with prizes each month. You guys are legends. Thank you. And a big special thanks to my mum for her support. She is helping to pay for some of the podcasts so I can bring the show to you every month and entertain you for a little hour. That is exciting. Now, for a little bit of GDU news. Very exciting news, actually, in regards to the podcast. Earlier in the week, I was actually interviewed on a Swedish podcast called Found It. That episode should be out in the coming week or so keep your eyes peeled for that. I will let everyone know when it's live, so you can go and have a little listen if you'd like. And Patrick from Found It podcast, he is also looking to chat with more Aussies and just share their geocaching experiences, being on the opposite side of the planet. Like to know what we do for geocaching down here. So if you would like to be on a foreign podcast, just simply reach out to me and I will pass your name on to Patrick. It's just an audio podcast, that one, so you don't have to do your hair. But that's pretty exciting for GDU going global. That's so exciting. So by now, you all should have a preferred drink in hand, maybe even dinner in your lap, and be ready to enjoy the show. So let's get this show started for you all. Sit back, relax, and let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, muggles and geocachers, a big g'day from USA. I'm coming to you from New Jersey, and I do miss you all. Meanwhile, is that time of the month, the time for PCE and the Geocaching Down Under podcast.
Thanks, SMS. That's awesome. Thank you for that intro. Okay, guys. Well, as you know, I am Purple Cache Eater, and tonight I am joined by John, Tchingal, and Matt, who are 3 Aussie reviewers. If you've got any genuine and respectful questions, please put them into the chat and I will get them displayed on the screen. So without further ado, here are the 3 superstars of my show. Please welcome Ministro, Tchingal, and Tiddalik. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Jerry Ann.
Hello. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's really a big thing for the podcast. And thank you very much for being out there and dealing with the public one-on-one. I know it's not always easy.
Is tiddalik in hiding?
Oh, he's obviously hiding his face. Oh, I'm sure he will come back to us in a moment. So what I'll do is I'll start off nice and easy and we'll go around the room so you've all got a chance. But basically, the first question really is how did you become a reviewer? So let's start with you, Matt, seeing as you're at the top of my screen.
Yeah, look, I was asked by one of the existing reviewers, the UMP, for the older people, I guess, in the chat or online would probably remember the UMP, to come in and give both him and John a bit of a hand back in the early days, back in 2011.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And how about yourself, Tchingal?
Bear left. Well, the same as what Matt was saying. He called me up and he was walking away from it at that stage, and he asked me if I would take over South Australia in 2013.
Okay, nice. All righty. That's great. Excellent. And Tiddalik, if you can hear me, how did you become a reviewer? Nope, can't hear you. Oh, well. All good. So
He said Crow made his audio.
yes, typical. It's always something technical, isn't it? All right, well, let's move on. So you sort of answered our questions there, Tchingal, but Matt, when did you become a reviewer, or how long?
I had to look that up tonight. So I've just ticked over 10 years this year. So June 2011 was when I came on board as a reviewer. So a while.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And how about you, Tchingal? When did you become a reviewer?
17th of March, 2013.
17th of March. Oh, that's very specific.
Yeah, well, it was on my profile up today.
Okay. That's awesome. Cool. All right. Tiddalik, if you can hear us, we can't hear you, but just jump in and let me know when you are back online and we will circle back to you. So basically, just on to another easy question for you all. How did you come up with your reviewer name? So I might start with you, Matt, again.
Yeah. So my reviewer name is Latin and it means to serve. So I'm a ex-private school boy, so a bit of a Latin background. And back in those days, there seemed to be a bit of Latin usernames around, so I chose Ministro simply for that reason. So.
Excellent. Okay. And Tchingal, how did you come up with your name?
I wanted to do something that would be identifiable as Australian, and I wanted to link with the Southern Cross. And there was also another consideration. I really wanted to honour a caching legend that was a great friend and a wonderful member of the community called Dax Emu Mob back in those days. And I wanted to remember the many places I'd been, like Emu Fields, and at home I've actually got a pair of emus out in the garden as a sculpture. So, and Parrot's my caching name, so it just all wrapped up around together.
Oh, that's handy. No, that's good. It's good picking a name that really ties in with yourself and your personality. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So hopefully this is another easy question for you. But basically, what do you like about being a reviewer? So I might just stick with you, Tchingal.
I really like the administrative side and the history of caching. I like the social interaction with HQ and the other reviewers around the world, getting to talk to them. I liked it when I went to America and did the block party, and I think we've even got a picture of me hanging out with a whole pile of other reviewers.
Yeah, let me put that up there for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, yes, it's just a different side to caching, actually, being on that administrative side and dealing with HQ and dealing with other people who do the same sort of tasks that like me and Matt and Tiddalik are doing.
It's almost like a behind the scenes.
Certainly is.
It's a whole different aspect of caching.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Ministro? How do you like to be a reviewer?
Yeah, I guess much the same for me. I'm a bit of a social cacher, so I like to catch up with people and meet up with people. But for me, it was also a chance to try and shape the game a little bit. HQ often often give us sort of some chances to give feedback around the game, and so I've really probably enjoyed being able to sort of shape some of the things that have happened throughout my time. So, and I have to give a shout out to Andrew for the nice call on the Obey t-shirt. So thank you.
Ashbush made. That's there
Yep.
you go. Awesome. So while I've got you there, Matt, what is it like being a reviewer?
Oh, look, it has its challenges. There are certainly, when I first came on board, we were publishing many thousands of caches per year, so it can be a grind. The times on a Sunday night when you just want to sit down and have a bit of time with the family or whatever before you hook into a week, and you open up the queue and everyone's had a busy weekend and is really looking forward to seeing their prize creations grow some life. That can be tough, but look, all in all, I have to say it's been really, really positive. The number of negative sort of connections that I've had over the 10 years, can probably count on one hand. So it's certainly been good, and I enjoy that we've been able to take the game that little bit further and bring some really cool things to the play. So
that's awesome. And how about you, Tchingal? What's it like being a reviewer for you?
I think I certainly have enjoyed the experience of that. I think the challenging part for me is dealing with the expectations of the guidelines and how they're interpreted by our clients, you could say, by the people who put out caches. That's the big challenge.
Yes, yep, absolutely. I'm just going to check in with Tiddalik. Can we hear you, Tiddalik? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? No, not yet. All right. All right, that's not a worry. Just give a quick shout out. I had a couple more people join in. So Andrew McMillan, thank you for joining us. Elizabeth Shaw, thank you. And Tim, all the way from Queensland, thank you for joining us. That's awesome. So let's move on to the next question. This is a nice, easy one. So whoever jumps in first can answer this one. But is there a limit of how many reviewers you can have in Australia?
I think it's about consistency, right? If you had lots of people, we could certainly probably get people's caches out to them quicker, but you then run into problems around managing consistency and managing sort of the area well and in the same way. So we've kind of built a team that is able to support each other and get caches published well before the expectations set out by HQ, but it allows us to make sure that we're all doing the same thing. So
great, excellent. Now, can you recruit yourselves, or does that have to go through HQ?
I guess the process we can't talk about too much, but we certainly have a big say in the process.
Okay. That's all right. That's cool.
Yep.
And, well, I'm sure it's not an easy job, but did you get any training, or were you just chucked in the deep end?
I'll let Andrew answer that one, because he was trained by myself. So we'll see how he goes for this one.
Well, this could be telling.
Oh, and he's dropped off.
That'd be right. Just when he was in the spotlight. Oh, dear.
So we certainly do. You can be a cacher of many years experience, but not everyone kind of has that deep understanding of the guidelines and the help center. There's a lot to learn. Our most recent reviewer, Jingery in Queensland, kind of had a bit of a shock, I guess, for the first 6 months, that trying to take it all in and understand it and consider it every single cache listing can be challenging, but there's certainly a training period and a fair degree of support, and lots of Zoom calls backwards and forwards and sharing screens, and technology is pretty good these days to be able to do all that sort of stuff.
That's awesome. I think, there we go. He's back. Let me
dropped out. One minute I was there, the next minute I dropped out.
It was your moment to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Are we still on the question of how we dropped in it, or have we moved on?
No, we haven't moved on. I just wanted to know, really, did you have any training, or were you chucked in the deep end when you became a reviewer?
I was definitely dropped in the deep end when I became a reviewer. I think he'd had enough by then, and I got about 2 hours training, and it was a very frustrating time for me for the first 6 months. I wouldn't have been able to do it without Matt. The only reason I'm here now is because Matt was such an incredible fallback for me, and he carried me through some difficult times when I was learning the ropes. And yeah, so, and I think there's another one. John started just after me as well, and me and John, because we were new, we used to bounce stuff off each other. But there's a marvelous amount of support behind us. You know, we can talk to other reviewers, and, you know, we have people at HQ that we can talk to as well when we don't really understand what's going on or we need some assistance. And there's heaps of reference material available.
Yeah, I bet there would be. So, well, you've been doing it for a while now. Has the job changed over the years, or is it similar to when you started?
Jumping in. Oh, for me, it's remarkably different now. I mean, we're all talking about mint tins and power trails, and I think like pole caches are the latest fad in a tree, you know, like such. It was very much an exploration thing when I first started, like, let's go and find something unique or get taken somewhere you'd never been before. But now, yeah, like Matt says, you can open up your thing and there's 1,000 caches to be reviewed in one night. Yeah, when I started, it took me 6 months to find 50 caches. I used to have to drive 2.5 hours to find a cache up in Blackwood from Elizabeth.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Excellent. How about you, Matt? Have you found it to be different to when you started?
Oh, absolutely. The guidelines are forever changing. You know, one of the things, and I'm sure we'll talk about guidelines later, but, you know, somebody that hit a cache 2 years ago, potentially the guidelines could look very different to them today. But, you know, power trails weren't even allowed back when I first started reviewing. There was specific things in the guidelines to exclude power trails. But yeah, look, I think the move to a much more mobile community who are online all of the time, there does seem to be a bit more of an expectation of, you know, instantaneous sort of action whenever they publish something. You know, I quite often get notes from especially younger enthusiastic caches that, you know, if you haven't published the cache in the first 30 minutes, you've got 5 other notes saying, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? And they're just excited.
Right. Yeah, and they're so used to that instant world, you know, with Messenger and all of that. You know, it's just instant responses.
Yeah. So, but the older hats, you know, that have been around for a while understand that it does take a little while, and sometimes they might make a mistake, and there's a bit of backwards and forwards. So, it's pretty good.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, yeah. So just with the changing of times and technology, it has evolved a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, I might move on then to just sort of a generic reviewer question, really. Might be easy to answer, it might be difficult, I'm not sure. But what is the process of publishing a cache?
I like the answer that you got in that sheet. That sums it up beautifully.
Yeah.
So it is just literally making sure it meets the guidelines. We go through and check a whole heap of things. So, you know, does the cache size kind of meet what they've described as the cache size? Does it look like it's in the logical spot? You'd be amazed at how many people say, "Oh, my cache is at the beach," and they've, you know, made a mistake in the coords and it's sitting at Mount Isa or something like that. You know,
I love that.
There's a whole.
You love it when they get the parking coordinates wrong, don't you? And they're in Japan. So the cache is in South Australia and the car park is in Japan.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's then just checking it down to make sure that it meets things, you know, that if it's a multi, it's at the posted, there's something at the posted coords. If it's a puzzle, then, you know, it meets the requirements for a puzzle. But, you know, largely it is literally just comparing the cache against the knowledge that we've got in our heads and against the guidelines, and you know, the making sure that it meets the requirements. I think the more challenging sort of ones are things like challenge caches. And I literally open the challenge guidelines for every challenge cache and I review it against that, because, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, can I have this challenge cache? All we do is we go and open up the guidelines and go, no, sorry, you can't have it because of this point, or yes, you can have it. So when we're reviewing caches, that's really all we're doing, is checking it against all the guidelines and the help center detail and making sure that it fits. And hopefully we can press the magic green button and send a whole heap of people careering off into wherever to try and find a newly published cache.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I always find the biggest delay to cache publication is the person who submitted the cache, because if they haven't just followed the simple guidelines, especially like with the communication, if there's nothing, if I can't see anything, then the cache is going back to be explained to me where it's hidden and why it's hidden and stuff like that. So, sometimes caches go backwards and forwards, and that's the biggest delay, is that, if you've taken all the time to set up a cache and prepare it and create a cache page, surely you can take a couple of minutes to write a reviewer note that says, this is where I placed it, this is what the container is like, this is how it's been hidden. And even if people stand back and look, what's the reviewer going to ask me about when they look at this themselves and say, what's that? So if I include that in the notes, then there's a good chance you'll be able to hit that button straight away.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I often say with people, you can be as sneaky as you want with the people that you're hiding the cache for, but just be as open and honest as you can be with the reviewer, and you're going to get what you want. If there's sort of things hidden or something's not clear, unfortunately we can get a bit cynical over time, because we have been caught in the past where people have done that. But just give us lots of information. I love reading a reviewer note that takes up 3/4 of the screen and has photos of the hide and tells me exactly how it was hidden and everything else. That's absolute beautiful, because we just go, yep, read it through, yep, all looks good, publish. It's simple.
I'm always suspicious when if I see nothing, then I get suspicious, and especially when people send me these 1 and 2, hide, guardrail, plastic container, just ridiculous stupidity. But you get that.
Yeah, that's right. And Rod's even said if you can submit a photo, that really helps you guys as well. Is that right?
Oh, pictures are great. Picture tells 1,000 words.
That it does.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rod. That's very true. Just give a quick shout out to Patrick from Found It Podcast. He's actually joined us all the way from Sweden. So thank you very much for taking the time out. That's awesome, Patrick. That's really wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so that. Now, sort of, how much time does it take to publish a cache once you receive the notification email?
That's a how long is a piece of string kind of question, that one.
I guess it depends on how many notes they give you, how detailed it is.
I think we answered a lot of that in the last one, because it boils down to, can I look at it and get everything I need to know by reading the reviewer note to hit the publish?
Yeah.
Okay.
A traditional as part of a power trail, could be 60 seconds. A virtual cache or a multi or a mystery that has lots and lots of stages in it can take, we're probably talking 30 minutes by the time you go backwards and forwards a few times with the person and have a fair bit of detail. So yeah, it can really vary.
Oh, you said power cache. That brings up one of my pet peeves in life.
Oh dear, what's that?
The people who submit exactly the same listing 1,000 times with it, because when I review a cache, we have to review each cache on its own merit. So I can't just hit publish on 1,000 caches because you've submitted 1,000 caches. I have to review every single cache in those 1,000 listing to make sure they meet the guidelines. So if I have to review everyone, then you need to submit everyone as if it's a standalone cache and tell me, how it's been hidden and where it's been hidden. It's no good just saying, these are all hidden along a trail. They could be anywhere up a tree, under a piece of bark, or under some stones. I need each listing to tell me what I'm trying to deal with and what you're asking me to publish. And same thing, sock puppet. Like all the power trails are put under sock puppet accounts. And you really need to know who it is that's going to own that power trail and who it is that's going to maintain it. And that should be on the listing as well, on the reviewer note as well. So that even when I don't, say someone else comes along after me or someone else has to deal with it, they then know it's not just local knowledge who that sock puppet account is. Someone else stepping in to review can then pick it up and work with it.
Can I also ask you, you refer to a sock puppet account. Could you just explain what that is, please?
It's when people use an alias to create an account. So, you know, they have an account where they can hide caches and then go out in their caching name and then find them.
Right.
It really bumps up your numbers.
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us, Diane. That's awesome. That is correct. Yeah. Reviewers all have jobs. They don't sit on the computer 24 hours a day looking for emails to come in so they can publish finds. So that is right. So can't publish in 5 minutes and does take a little time. So a bit of processing time there. Thanks for that, Diane. Appreciate it. And Grub Fred, thank you for joining us. Wonderful to see you here tonight. Hopefully you've got a little martini in hand. That would be good. Now, actually, this might be a little bit more of a tricky question. I'm not sure. I've had someone from the community reach out to me and just ask a couple of questions that they'd like to know. So is it in your power, or how do you stop the auto-deleting of caches from HQ for unpublished hides? I might throw to you, Matt.
Look, I would not only give the advice for this reason, but if you've got a cache listing that you're working on, make sure you keep putting reviewer notes on it fairly regularly. You know, if you're working on a listing and we see that there's activity on that listing, if somebody else goes to hide something nearby, then we'll go down and we can see that even though it's unpublished, we'll be able to see it. And if there's recent notes, when I say recent, you know, the last couple of months, we'll actually contact you and say, look, I see you're working on this. I've actually got another one in the queue. Can I give you a month to sort of get yours under control? And we'll reply back to the other person and say, look, I'm really sorry, somebody else is working on something. That's not a never-ending sort of thing, though, right? You can't just reserve bulk areas and kind of just keep posting notes. There has to be some sort of action. But the best thing if you're working on a cache page, just make sure you're keeping regular notes on it, and then that problem sort of stops.
Yeah.
The reason we do that is so that we don't get a whole heap of sort of false positives around flags for caches that people aren't really doing anything with. They're just kind of sitting them there. HQ come through every so often and just kind of clear out those older listings for us.
Yeah, that's right.
So that really, can we stop it? No, because it's an automated process. The ones that haven't been touched and are laying idle, we don't archive them. HQ has an automatic process where they're automatically archived.
Yep. But if you've got one that does come through that gets archived, you've just forgotten about it, I know lots of people reach out to me. We're more than happy to unarchive them. We'll unarchive them, and you can jump on and update your listing and hopefully get it published within the next month or so people can enjoy it. So
that's right. That's right.
Yep.
Now, just before we move on, I just saw a quick question here relating to our last question. So how do reviewers balance the workload? Do you have a set weekly time schedule for reviewing caches, or do you just do them whenever they come in?
Oh, look, we can look at it any time we want. I used to get in trouble a lot when I first started reviewing in Queensland. People hated the fact that I was a bit of a night owl. I would work till late in the evening, and then I would start publishing caches at about 11 o'clock at night. Apparently that interferes with people's sleep routines. I don't know. But people didn't like the fact that they missed out on the chance to get it first to find. So I try and spread that around a bit, but honestly, it's just whenever we get time.
Yeah,
from my point of view.
Tchingal?
And I like to be chaotic because I think it gives everybody a chance for first to find. You know, like there probably is some predictable parts of my behaviour that everybody have worked out. But if I can, I throw in the odd curveball so that someone else might get a chance.
Yeah, that's right. And some people like the adventure of going night caching. So, you know, 1 a.m. first to find is right up their alley.
Yep. Just if I can take you back, I just noticed a previous comment there from Heidi Gill, just around some consistency and whatnot. Look, I guess if you're getting different things from a reviewer, or something's not clear, or you're being asked for something that you're not sure why, everyone has always got the opportunity to either go to HQ as an appeal, and that's really good. In challenging us and making sure that we're doing the right thing for the community. Quite often we'll actually lodge an appeal on your behalf if we think something's a bit sort of borderline. But I just noticed that the main point that I want to talk about was the wiki page. So hopefully everyone that has ever submitted a cache knows that there is a wiki page for Australia. and in that, there are some very specific Australian things that we try to clarify and make sure that we're sort of following the same sort of line. Now, there are some differences state to state. So things like the event stacking policy isn't consistent across the countryside. We do work together and try and find something that fits everybody. But, what works for me in Queensland or ACT might not work for John in Sydney or Bunjil in Melbourne, for instance. So if you go to that link, and then you can, so there's the stuff that is Australia wide will be on that page, and then you can go from there. You can go to the individual states, and it's got really specific stuff. Like I think the Queensland one has stuff about how to deal with caches in national parks, because Queensland national parks have a very specific policy, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a really good link to make sure it's in the guidelines. It's right at the very top of the guidelines. It says regional geocaching policies. It's a really good one to go and check.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Matt. So I'll just read out that link address for anyone who's listening back to us later. So it's www.wiki.groundspeak.com/display geo, and geo is capital, GEO capitals, /Australia. So wiki.groundspeak.com/display/geo/Australia. That's got the Australia guidelines and also breakdown state by state, so you can see the differences there. So thank you very much, Heidi. Thank you for submitting your question.
And I've got to agree with Matt. Like, it can't be consistent because each of the states are really different in their makeup. So that, like here, we're the gateway to the outback. Now, the sorts of remote caches I publish, you're not going to see in Victoria unless you're talking about the high country or something like that. But, we have desert areas. We've got the Great Victorian Desert and places like that, so there has to be a different approach to how we see things and how we publish. And I think even HQ mentions that somewhere, that different states and territories and countries will have different approaches to how things are published.
Yeah.
This is just going to be a fact of life. But,
yeah, absolutely.
and it'd be hard that if you were publishing caches all across Australia anyway, because you're supposed to be doing them in your own area so that you can look after them and maintain them. So, it shouldn't really be impacting overly great. But as Matt said, I've always asked that people go to the, the reviewers with HQ if they want to challenge anything that we say or do.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's good. Thank you for that. Thanks for explaining that. That's great. Now, the other question I had from the community was, how do you stop the auto notifications from HQ when only a couple of people log DNFs on your cache? And why does it get disabled after a few DNFs without attempting to contact the cache owner?
Lagged out there.
So I'm happy to answer that one. There's and I'll have to try and find the point in the guidelines and maybe share it. But once upon a time, we used to wait for a geocache to get a needs maintenance log on it, and then we would wait a little bit of time for the cache owner to respond to that needs maintenance log, and then we would accept a needs archive log, and then the reviewers would get involved. As part of trying to make the game as enjoyable as we can for everybody, we kind of realized that was a bit of a bad experience for a lot of caches, because they might go and find something that's full of water, it's horrible, the cache owner's not really doing a great thing. So Geocaching HQ introduced the health score, and if anyone wants to look up the health score in the Help Center articles, you'll see the detail in there. And it now flags to us caches that have probably got a problem. Now, it's got an algorithm that sits behind it that we don't get a whole lot. I can't really tell you a whole lot of exactly how it works, but if you've got a cache that's a 1.5 easy find, and it's got a heap of finds and then 4 DNFs in a row, chances are, if they're not all on the same day by the same group, chances are there might be something that needs looking at. So as a cache owner, you really should be going out and having a bit of a look. And I'll post a note if I come across one of those saying you got a note recently, or I'll disable it. And if it's disabled, it just means it's not a bad thing. It just means that there's probably something wrong with your cache. You maybe need to have a look at it. And it lets the rest of the community know, hang on, maybe bypass this one until he only gets a chance to look at it. So,
yeah. No, that's fair enough. Did you have anything to add, Tchingal?
Well, I was going to say, like, it feeds into the thing about, place caches near your home that you can provide maintenance, because it never ceases to amaze me that it's such a difficult task to go and have when someone says this needs to be looked at and I disable a cache, all you have to do is go look at it, fix it up, and then go, enable the cache and do a maintenance log and do an enable, and then we're on our way. There's no great imposition here. And like Matt said, it's not a bad thing. It's just if you're providing maintenance, you run out and have a look at it. Because some of them drag out for over a year nearly. It's like pulling teeth getting people to do maintenance.
Let me just see if I can copy this. I'm just going to put a banner here. So Matt's just given me some information. So this information that you've just given me here, Matt, I'm not going to read that one out. That one's crazy.
Oh, no.
I'll put that in the chat for everyone as well. What's that link there for, Matt?
So that's the geocaching health score. So it's from the Help Center articles, and it sort of it sits under the ownership after publication and talks about, the response from owners is, should you get one of those emails that's being referred to.
I can hear.
There you are, John.
Yep, I can hear and I can speak.
Welcome.
Took ages, but I'm back.
We got there in the end. That's good.
It's Windows. I had to reboot it.
Oh, goodness.
It's been behaving itself all afternoon.
That'll be right. And just when you need it, it's gone.
Exactly. As soon as you want to word it, Murphy woke up. He sleeps over here in this cupboard.
That'd be right. Well, now that we've got you, John, I might just backtrack a little. If you just want to just give us a quick overview. How long have you been a reviewer? How did you come up with your name? That sort of intro.
God, I put that away. I don't know whether I should open that bit of paper again that I had.
Oh, might crash the whole system.
Well, I've got StreamYard running in Chrome, and that's where that document is.
Oh, okay.
But okay, I can guess some of the stuff. In May, I think it was the 19th of May, 2004 was when I started reviewing.
Nice. Okay.
Back when we had pencils, clipboards.
We still got those.
Uh-huh.
Oh, dear. And how did you come up with your reviewer name?
The first one that I had, that was I read a lot of Isaac Asimov books at the time. Thanks, Leanne. And one of the books that I read was I, Robot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, that's close. I might just use that. And I did.
Okay.
So that's essentially what it was. And it was back at that time, the reviewers in Australia weren't really hiding anywhere. The ones before me, the two before me, used their player accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me at the time, when I took over, they said, well, you probably should have another account simply because you're going to get everything in that one account. You'll have a mess of messages, you'll have emails, you'll have the lot. So it was just a matter of separating the two accounts.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I can see how once the caches start getting submitted, it would become overwhelming, yeah.
Well, that's right, yes. There wasn't that many, but at the time when I started, but, it was quality over quantity back then.
Nice, okay then.
But the second name, tiddalik, I've always liked frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And tiddalik is a frog.
Okay.
So that's basically what it is.
Okay, nice. Very cute. I do like your avatar too. It's very cute.
Uh-huh. What, the Rocky Frog?
Yeah, it's great. So then you've been reviewing for a while. Have you noticed changes in the process of reviewing over the time?
Yes. It's got a lot more, as the game has grown, it's got a lot more automated. Now, we've got things that help us a lot. When we started, it was, when I started, it was, we didn't have anything really that would go through and do a quick check for us. If at the time when national parks started throwing their weight around and saying we don't want any caches in national parks, the only way they could really check those out was to copy the coordinates out and drop them into, I use Google Earth, and then just with the KML file of the national parks and just see whether they're inside that. So for every case you had to do was copy the coordinates, and if they were a multi or they were a mystery, or multi with a bunch of physical waypoints, it meant you had to copy every one. Look
That's
at
very
it, see
manual.
what it's like. It was a very manual process. These days it's basically an automated thing that just says, well, this polygon is owned by national parks. You're not meant to be in there, so a little bit of software has a quick look. It basically does the same thing, but it does it so much faster.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful improvement for you then.
It is.
I remember Street View, John. When I first started, you used to have to copy the coordinates out paste them into Google to have a look at what the Street View shot was, so you could get a feel for the location. Those sorts of things are now just built into what we do. So.
Well, that's right. Now you just press the Street View button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering that if you ever do jump onto Google Maps and do Street View and just sort of see the location, you know.
Well,
it's all
you do that a lot. Available. Yeah, it's there. It's part of what our toolkit is. Like you've got your own toolkit, we've got our toolkit, and part of that is Street View, and obviously Google Earth or Google Maps. Really, not so much Earth, but because that's not built in. But the maps are so we can look at the cache location on a number of different maps, and get an idea of where it is, and Street View to see just what's around at the time. It's amazing the number of people who will put a cache on the roof of a house.
Is that just getting the coordinates wrong or taking the coordinates?
Well, it's probably taking it wrong, I'd say, more than getting it wrong. A lot of people don't seem to have the feel for being able to take the coordinates and then look at a map and see whether they're really there.
Yeah.
You see cases that
to waypoint averaging.
Yes. Well, there's more to it than just waypoint averaging, but a lot of people don't do that. But you've also got to take a look. If you really want to look at this thing, you've got to look at where your constellation is, whether the satellites you're using are close together or far apart. If they're close together, then you're not going to get as accurate a fix as if they're further apart.
Okay.
So there's a number of things that come in. You've got to check to see whether you're not getting reflections off a building. If you're in a built-up area, that happens. And, of course, that throws out that because it works on time and it's working in microseconds, just having a little bit longer path because the signal's bounced off a couple of buildings throws it out. So there's lots of it's not so much just like a point, press a button and it's there. It's a matter of looking around a bit and at the surroundings before you take the coordinates.
Fair enough.
I got one person who complained they couldn't get accurate coordinates. They'd been standing under the bridge for 15 minutes and they couldn't understand why it was in the middle of the river. They were right next to their cache.
Yep. Yeah, that happens.
Yep.
I guess that's when they get the note back saying, please review.
Well, you get that back and you say, please. But then the thing, of course, there's two things. You can send a note, but then they've got to read it.
Yes.
I've got a theory that I get theories after a while. I've got a number of theories, but I've got one that when people get a bunch of notes come in on their cache, they only read the first one. So you send 4 notes, and they read one, and then the other ones they just don't read.
Right.
And because there's a limit on the number of characters you can put in one, you can't really just concatenate them all together, especially if you write long ones.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Just having a quick look through the chat room. I'm just going to go off script here a little. Darren Archer from Queensland has just got a question here. Do you think there will ever be a change to the adoption policy to allow adoption of caches that the cache owner is obviously no longer in the game?
No. I could probably answer that one because I can remember it coming up on the 23rd of September 2007. And what it is the actual cache container is not owned by Groundspeak.
Mhm.
They used to allow adoptions all the time. And it was basically, oh, can we adopt this cache? Yes, certainly you can. But the problem is now, legally, they can't give away something they don't own.
Okay.
And they don't own the container, which is why now the adoption process goes through. You have to physically say, yes, you can give away my container by going through the adoption form.
Mhm.
So that's
And also,
what it is.
I think they like caches to be refreshed, and they like new caches going out for people to find. So, that I understand there's a historical aspect to caches that have been around a long time. So that certainly suits some sections of the community. But for other people that have been trying to hide something in an urban area, and they get very frustrated saying, why can't I find anywhere to put a cache out? If there's a refresh, it helps the new players in the game.
Yeah.
Not something that long-term players want to hear, but
And we like those old numbers.
Mm. Well, a lot of people like old caches. As I said, there's the historical side of things. It's they're basically getting something that is almost antique.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The Help Centre article, the Help Centre did change a number of years ago, though, partially along those lines, to say that the container, if the game believes that the container is abandoned, so the listing's been archived, but the cache owner has left it out there, then somebody else can remove it. So there's at least that ability there now, and I've seen people sort of grab old caches like that and put a new logbook in them and relist them. But as far as just straight out adopting the old listing, I'm not sure that it'll happen.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, Matt. Basically, if it's abandoned, and they, I think it's another one of the little bum covering exercises as well from the legal department, because if it's abandoned and you go out and pick it up and recycle it as a new cache, it's a different listing, different cache. They don't know anything about it.
Mm.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's about ensuring that there's not geo litter out there. So making sure that containers that just get archived by a reviewer, perhaps, and the owner's no longer in the game, then at least it gives an opportunity for somebody to go and collect it and clean it up.
So you can't just adopt a cache without the previous owner's communication and handing it over.
No,
while it's still active. Yeah.
There's a form on the website. If you go to geocaching.com/adopt, you go into a form, and the owner has to be active, because the owner has to go to that form and put in the name of the login name or the caching name of the person who they wanted to adopt it, send them a message. And then once they get the message, they just click on it, say if they want it, say yes, and it's adopted.
Just furthering on from this point here, I've just got an interesting question from Andrea on Facebook. So in regards to if a cache owner passes away, is there a protocol for that? How would you know if that cacher is no longer caching?
Somebody tells us.
Okay.
Yep.
there is a policy on it now, isn't there, Matt, where you can nominate in your profile about passing on caches in the event of people dying in the community?
I vaguely remember seeing something like that, but as most of the time it comes across that we'll get an email from a cache owner, with some detail, a funeral notice or something. And quite often those caches, if they're noteworthy, will become what we call community managed. So where they're either old or whatever, and the reviewers kind of agree to take on some of the maintenance of the listing, removing a needs maintenance flag if somebody has gone and replaced a log or whatever. They're not, it's not something that happens wholesale. It doesn't happen all across the board, but there are certainly some old, if I think New South Wales, there are certainly some old two dogs caches that are being managed like that are old, really
There
quite
are.
old school. Yeah.
There's also some of Darren's caches.
Oh, yeah. Yep,
The
Spinox.
same way. And also trying to think, Son of Hack. Strong Gecko looks after those.
Yep.
Okay.
Because Hack was a friend of his.
Yep.
Okay.
But
All right,
normally
so,
what we do, we put a little note on it to say that their community looked after.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There you go. Hopefully that answered your question, Andrea. Thank you very much. Now, this is probably a big topic for you all, but what are the most common mistakes that people make when submitting a cache? I know, Tiddalik, you were saying about coordinates being inaccurate.
Well, coordinates in the wrong hemisphere is one of the things that turn up.
Does that happen quite surprisingly a lot, does it?
It does. It can happen quite a bit. I'll just pop up something like that. Yes, if I just hit a button here somewhere, I can throw that over there and just look a little bit different for a minute. Notice I put a purple background in just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you've even got the
Yes.
frog. I love it.
Yeah. Well, my little frog up here.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So inaccurate
Yep.
coordinates.
Yes. Well, if sometimes I find a lot of cases sort of not so much halfway between Australia and New Zealand, but I find quite a few up floating in the Sea of Japan.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is normally that instead of the default on the site is for caches to be in the Northern Hemisphere. And if you forget to change the north to the N to an S, your caches migrate to the Sea of Japan. So that's one of the things that comes up quite a bit. The other thing that comes up a bit too is something on the lines of this. You see something like this where you've got a couple of caches out, and you think, oh, I've got all this space over here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nobody's put a cache there. I'll go and put my cache in there. But what they don't know, because what doesn't show on the maps that you get to look at, the players get to see, is that this multi down the corner here has actually got a few waypoints in a GZ, and they effectively take over all that area.
Yes. Yep. Good point.
So we get people say, well, I had a look on the map and there wasn't any red circle there.
Yes.
Well, that's because you don't get to see the red circle. We do. Yeah, so there are a couple of the things. The other thing that comes up from my side is coordinates.
Mm-hmm.
The default that is used is the degrees and decimal minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody's using an Android machine, they normally get degrees and decimal degrees, which is the second one down.
Right.
And if they want to convert that to degrees and decimal minutes, you multiply the decimal part of the degrees by 60. And suddenly you've got minutes.
Okay.
If you're running an iPhone compass type thing, then you get the third one down. Its default is degrees, minutes, and seconds, which can be converted by dividing the seconds by 60 and adding the minutes to it. We'll give you a bit decimal minutes again. The next one down is ideal if you're into degrees, minutes, and seconds, but it's I don't know of any device that has that, like any phone that has that. I'm talking smartphones now as a standard. But the reason that this causes a problem is when we look at the degrees, minutes, and seconds, that bluish coloured rectangle there is the space of 1 second.
Right.
Now, I've stuck it up there in Newcastle, but you can see how much area it covers. So basically 2 houses and their backyards. So if people put out their coordinates, and we get quite a few where they pop them up, and they've done it with degrees, minutes, and seconds, that they're giving you a space of a couple of house blocks to find the cache in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, as in
And before someone asks, you don't just bump the difficulty up. You go and get some good coordinates, all right?
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
because there's no, because that doesn't work.
No. Do it right.
Yeah, do it right. Go back and do it again. Then, this is a listing. No, you're not going to see it all because I've got me on top of it. But this is one that popped into me. If you have a look at it, well, down here there's no description. It's totally blank. No attributes. Attributes are needed in some cases. They're not a requirement, except if you're putting out a puzzle cache, or you're putting out a field puzzle, or trying to think of the other one we need now, a bonus cache.
Right.
They're basic, and tree climbing caches. They're mandatory attributes.
Beacon and UV as well, John.
Pardon?
Beacon caches, so chirp caches also need a attribute.
Oh, chirp as well, yeah. And I don't get to see many of those.
And UV. So if you've got a cache that involves UV, you've got to specify UV on it as well.
Yeah. The other thing down here is this thing is 2,000 kilometres away from the home coordinates.
It's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. We see that a bit too.
Okay.
It's either people who forgot to change the coordinates, or they just put anything in to get past a spot.
Right, okay. So you mean they haven't updated their home coordinates?
Yes, well, or else they just put anything in.
Okay.
Because if you don't have home coordinates in now, the system won't let you go any further.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to put some in.
Mm-hmm.
They're about the only major points that I had. Oh, the other one is that's where our Australian information is kept.
We talked about that one, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that one. That's right.
The big ones for me are guidelines. Just read the guidelines. Like when you submit a cache, you've got to tick two little boxes. One of them says that you're agreeing to the terms of use, and the other one says that you've read the guidelines. Just read the guidelines. There's so many simple stuff that people submit that just could be picked up if people read the guidelines.
Yeah,
exactly.
And look, if you're wanting to do something a bit sort of out there, then reach out to your reviewer and have a chat about it. You're better to go to that effort up front. Check the coordinates. You know, in that example that John showed that had the multi that was taking up area in the park, you can submit a cache to us and just check to see if that area is available before you go and start on this, multi-factor encryption level kind of puzzle, and then find out that all of a sudden it doesn't work. But yeah, just read the guidelines, especially challenge cache. The people that are really good at placing challenge caches read those guidelines and they have them sitting next to them and they just work through them.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that the best way for people to reach out and ask you questions? Is just submit a cache listing with questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do well. I usually. Oh, sorry. In South Australia, I've always asked them to put like stars on either side of the cache name to remind me that it's not a cache for publication. I'll get star check this star, and then they'll float the idea of what it is that they're trying to achieve and the waypoints of what they are. I mean, it's not something I'm wanting for every traditional cache, but if you've got a really great placement that's going to take a bit of effort, then running it past me first. And, it reserves, like Matt was saying earlier, you can reserve the spot so I know that they need a couple of months to build this particular clever cache. They've identified where the waypoints are going to be, so we've sort of locked that down as well.
Yeah. One point on that, you don't actually have to submit a listing to the reviewer to save the spot. All you need to do is create a page and save it. Once it's done that, it's in the database, and we don't need to see it just to say, oh, you want this spot. You just leave it there and work on it. Provided you work on it and it looks like you're continuing to work on it, it'll stay there. Okay. And we'll know that it's your spot.
And if it's inactive for a certain amount of time, it automatically gets archived, doesn't it?
If it's inactive, yes. Although that can be, you can put a note on it, but the thing is, the bot doesn't read notes. So basically, all the bot's looking at is whether or not there's been activity on it within a certain time limit.
Yep.
So,
certainly post a note. Don't just leave it completely blank though, because if we kind of get something that was created 6 months ago and it's got nothing on it, the cache listing's completely blank and there's no note there, chances are the other person's just going to come plowing on through. So
yeah, because they've put the time and the effort, they've placed the cache, they've got the cache page up and ready, and they've submitted it to us.
Yep.
So.
But if it's got a heap of detail in it and it says, I'm still working on this, or just trying to finalize my container purchase from Taiwan or whatever, then we're going to pick that up and go, oh, hang on, they are actually doing something there. So
yeah.
But there's a lot of other simple things to avoid too, like putting company and business names into your description. Commercial content, I can knock a lot back for commercial content. Like, there's a great bakery right here, stop and have a cake, and, telling people to visit a shop because the food's great. And also we said about mentioning competing products. They don't like, Groundspeak doesn't like you mentioning path tags or, other games that are a similar sort of vein.
Yeah, talking about Yatla Pies. This is an awesome place to pull in and get a feed, with a big link to their website. It's probably not great.
No.
I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of innocent people just, trying to refer people to say, there's food and drink nearby and not realizing that.
Well, you can put food and drink because that's generic. But if you want to put down that this is Mrs. Brown's famous tuck shop, then that's a bit of a problem.
Right, okay.
But so it's a matter of being non-specific.
Okay.
Otherwise, once you start being specific about it, you're running into the problem of promotional text.
Yep, that is
and agenda as well too. I mean, that plays a part sometimes.
Yeah,
we get cases that people have an agenda like heart disease and cancer and all sorts of blanket appeals, and I haven't seen a lot of that nowadays. But certainly in the past, I used to get a lot of support. I want someone that wanted to create a cache where you dropped off blankets, and another one wanted a cache where you dropped off cans of food, and someone wanted one where you could donate money to his wife who had died from cancer. So those sort of agenda things. Come to my cache because you'll get fit and healthy.
Yeah,
You're not supposed to be telling people what they should be doing or what they should be thinking.
You also, another one too, you can't honour a group. You can honour a person with a cache, but not a group.
Right. Okay.
So we can put a cache out and say, one for Matt here, he's a great guy. It'll go through. But if somebody wanted to put one out for the RFS, no. Or the SES or anything, no, because it's a group.
Right.
But one person within the group is okay.
So that would fall sort of under that advertising promotion.
It comes under, general sort of stuff, yeah.
Okay.
And then we get that. There's other things too, like what America calls call to arms, which are things like lest we forget, sayings like that.
Yeah. But then again, that's on their side of the pond.
Yep.
Some of the things that America gets annoyed about up there out here, we don't seem to worry too much about them. Like caches under bridges and things. They're worried because every time anybody goes under a bridge over there, they think they're going to blow it up.
That's right.
Whereas here, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The line for an agenda, I guess, crosses into when you're really telling somebody to do something, feel something, say something.
Yeah.
Asking for a donation, or please spare a thought for the thousands of people that died in the tsunami, or whatever it might be. That's where it crosses into the agenda line.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Okay. We got anything else?
Look here.
There was a question in the Heidi put one back at 8:23 around some of the older multis have physical waypoints.
Oh yes.
Look, there are certainly older caches out there that have physical waypoints that probably either are now or always have been virtual waypoints. It's a bit of a blurry kind of line. If somebody has kind of made those physical, I'll generally tend to write them a note, but I can't force somebody necessarily to change them. There's kind of a couple of different schools of thought there, but it's typically the main ones we come across are the old puzzle caches where people haven't listed the starting coords as virtual, and we kind of pick up those as part of our regular sort of roaming around the listing. So, but if you've got a specific one that you want to call out, maybe not in the chat, Heidi, just drop us a note and we can certainly have a look at them for you and see if we can give somebody a nudge.
Yeah. I normally go through them, and if there's one sitting there and it looks to me like it's blocking a cache, or somebody's put a listing, and one of these waypoints pop up on one of those caches, I'll normally read through the thing, and if I can, I'm quite happy in saying yes, there's definitely nothing at that particular point, then I'll just change it. Not make a note that it's virtual and ignore it in saturation tests. The other thing that on the same line that pops up too, there are a number of older multis out there and also mysteries that don't have the GZ down.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but if the GZ is not there, we don't know where they are.
Right.
And if we don't know where they are and you want to put a cache 3 feet away from it, you can.
Okay, and is that just because it's an older cache and the guidelines were different?
The guidelines changed, yes. The guidelines started out, the original guidelines were about 4 words.
Oh.
Have fun. Put the case. That was when, and then they started out with basically just a few words, and then there was nothing about the saturation. There was nothing about the need to put in your waypoints. Basically, all you need to do is put in your published coordinates, and that was it.
Okay.
Because they weren't worrying about anything else. And it's only when they started to worry about where caches were and where the waypoints were located, basically because I think some of the national parks in America are pretty strict on what they can and can't do in them, that they started doing that. They started coming out that this happened. Well, a number of my early player caches don't have the finished cohorts in for the reason that they just weren't required. There was no database to keep them in those days, as far as I know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we had one in Adelaide, I remember, like that you had to run all around Adelaide, and then somebody put out a traditional about 3 feet away from the final because it wasn't documented. And then people were finding the wrong cache.
Yeah, well, there's one I know in New South Wales that's like that too. It's an old cache. The final isn't documented, and I know where it is because I found it long time ago. But there's a new cache that's sitting very close to it, probably just below it, I'd say.
Yeah.
But then again, it's because it's not documented.
Wow. I've seen, so Andrea commented a bit earlier about the problem with premium caches that, sometimes you don't even know they exist as a basic member. I've had somebody hide a brand new cache in the same hollow as there was already a cache hidden, and they just hadn't moved the sticks and stuff that were inside the hollow.
Put it on top, did they?
Yeah, put it on top. I kind of went back to them and said, while you were placing this one, you didn't happen to find another cache because, she literally took a photo of where the other one is. So, it happens.
Well, it does. I had 2 either side of a park bench once. That was just ridiculous. Because people weren't looking. They're not thinking there's a cache there. They're placing their cache.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. I just got an interesting question here from Leonie on Facebook. She said recently she looked at a cache listing, and there was an automatic download on the page with no warning. Is that part of the guidelines?
Oh.
I thought they stripped out all Java and stuff.
It depends on what it was. If it was just a well, it actually shouldn't be automatic download any file, really. It can run JavaScript and that in the browser. But what sort of file was it? Was it an exe, or was it a PDF file that was coming down? Automatic downloading sounds like she had that set up on her browser.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You would think they would stop that so malicious files didn't get automatically downloaded.
I
that's
reckon, at a guess, it's probably, like, it certainly wouldn't have been on the geocaching page. I dare say it's one of those puzzles that probably links through to multiple other pages, and somebody's created a page potentially. But certainly, Leonie, to answer your question, no, it's not allowed without some sort of warning to say you're downloading a file, as clearly noted in the guidelines. And without that, it shouldn't be allowed. So, and I've certainly published puzzle caches that haven't had a whole lot of text on the listing page, except for you are about to download a file with a disclaimer. So
yes. Jono, Melbs at 8:38 has asked when will CETOs be published in New South Wales. He wants to host one early December. He can do that. Yeah. New South Wales has now lifted all its limits for vaccinated people. So up to 1,000, I think. So if you can get 1,000 people together, you're right.
Yeah. So for the ACT, because I know there's a few ACT people, again, that wiki that we talked about earlier has the descriptions for what's allowed as a national number. The state has to allow gatherings of 80 people or more before events will be published in that state. So for the ACT, I think we're currently at 30, with a plan to go to 100, I think is the next step. So events can't be held until they get over that 80 mark. And that's just to make sure that we don't have any sort of illegal, oh, there you go. Heidi's just said they're fully lifted Friday. So that's just to make sure that there's no issues with people gathering illegally. So,
in South Australia,
Heidi asked an earlier one up here about how does that work? I think she was about honouring things. What about the whole SES GeoArt? GeoArt's okay. That's just a bunch of different caches. It's not on one cache.
So I think her point, John, is that series of caches are all about the SES, and you mentioned before that you can't honour a group.
But doesn't honour them. I don't think it actually honours them.
Just the way you described might have been a little bit conflicting for people.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
Can I jump back though with the COVID thing, because everyone said about their state, but South Australia, we're currently on level 1, so you have to have a COVID safe plan, not a management plan, a safe plan, and a local marshal at your event if you're going to hold an event outside. And if it's inside, it's fine because nearly every place has a COVID safe plan. I just ask that people send me the capacity of the venue they're going to use so that I can check that people will be able to go to the event without being turned away.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then Leonie's come back regarding her automatic download question. She said, yeah, correct, Matt. It took you to an external website. As soon as you type the URL, a file downloads. I tried it on multiple devices and did the same thing on each. It was only recently published too. So.
Oh, okay.
Typing the URL is interesting.
Yeah.
So
I'd go back to
URL.
Go back to the publishing reviewer, Leonie, if it was me or Bunjil or John, not knowing exactly where it is, then maybe just get them to have a look at it, I think is the best way to deal with it.
Yes.
Hopefully that helps.
I think that was a question that was mentioned earlier, wasn't it, about what do you do if you come across a cache that you don't think is, has been buried or isn't proper?
Yep.
What can we do about this? And like they're saying, contact the reviewer. So, if you have concerns about something that's on private property or buried or is a problem, then you can always email the publishing reviewer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
That's the easiest way.
Yeah, post the needs. Like if it's just a general problem with the cache, it's been abandoned or it's full of water, then use the needs archive log. They get picked up. I will say though, at the moment with COVID, we have kind of backed off a little bit on the needs archive just because people couldn't travel around outside of their LGAs and whatnot. We didn't want to be overly harsh and go archiving somebody's pride and joy when they legally couldn't go and get to it. But certainly by the end of this month, we'll start swinging back into that with full swing, and then there'll be a requirement for people to go out and maintain their caches within a timely manner.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Stay to CS caches, eh?
So Heidi's come back. She reckons that the SES caches is actually honouring the SES. Just come there. Cannot honour a group and mentioned SES. I asked about the SES GeoArt and how that falls into his statement. So, yeah, I have to have a
We'll
look.
tell Dave I'll investigate these caches.
There you go, Heidi. Someone's on it.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I can
published
see
a
it.
couple of SES caches recently, but all they were was the building outside. Like you went to the building, you got the numbers off the building, and that took you to a final. There was nothing mentioned about what they did or what happened or anything else beyond this is the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. I don't remember anything that stood out with Dave's caches either, for that matter, although it's dim in my memory.
Awesome.
Been out there for a while.
Thanks, Annie. Appreciate your kind words. That was the whole point of tonight's show was to be informative and educational and get your questions answered. So thank you for joining us, Annie. Appreciate that. What was that?
I was going to say there's something from the past. I noticed Susan Gardner, saying that it's not a GA cache. We don't come across that as much as we used to.
No.
Yeah. I remember at Wagga finding a GA cache right next to a GC cache.
Yeah, Susanna said, we have a cache container close to the end of a multi. Lots of people sign it thinking that it's the multi. No one knows what cache that is. Also not a GA cache.
That's why it's so
got
important to label your cache. Label your cache.
That's
Put
right.
the GC code on it. Make sure people get the right one.
And put a little
But there
note
are-
inside saying this is not the right cache.
Yeah. There are certainly some caches, and I know the Mid-North Coast has a few of them as well, that there's two caches up the one tree, and one's a GA and one's a GC. That gets a little bit
Yeah.
challenging.
There's a few around. It's actually just to make sure people can read.
But I guess for people's benefit, we don't check for proximity against other listing services.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's just geocaching.com.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Houston,
well,
Texas
we
Day.
can't.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good day, mate. Cool. Alrighty, I might just get close to wrapping up, seeing as we have taken so much time. So one last happy question to end on. Do reviewers have a special get-together or a Christmas party at the end of the year?
Well, there is one, but not here. We're
Just
so
like
far apart.
virtual at this
over
point in
here.
time, wouldn't it?
We have a virtual one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the rest
There
of
is
us.
one in America. There is one. I think Andrew might talk about it. I think he went to it one time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we've got a picture as well. I went to a big reviewer.
Yeah, let me just put that there for you.
No, that's the one in Melbourne.
That's the one in Melbourne, and this is the one.
This is the one that was in Seattle. So there's geocaching reviewers from all around the world in there, and there's even up the back is Kathy, who's a HQ lackey, who used to look after me, and I suppose some of the others here in Australia. So
Yeah, it still does.
well, Cindy's taken over.
So we
Oh,
certainly have gotten together at
Right.
various times around the world. So quite often reviewers will just catch up, sort of either just as a impromptu kind of catch up, but typically if there's big events, we'll try and catch up with a few others. I've certainly, gone caching with American reviewers in San Diego a couple of years ago, and caught up with people in HQ.
Oh, that's
Andrew,
Yeah.
you got a question here from Sandy Spink, who wants to know about cooked food in South Australia and barbecues.
Oh, yeah, because I was on the phone for about 20 minutes with the COVID government line. And so communal food means that, like I queried about a barbecue, and you're only supposed to have one person looking after the food and distributing the food. So you can actually have a barbecue, but they can't, and they don't want people congregating at the table where the food is served from. It should be maintaining that social distance, 1.5, like one person goes up at a time and comes back and gets the food, and there should be like one person cooking and one person handing out the food. It's supposed to be minimal, handling, but you can actually do it. So it is, yes, it is only, is that okay? Yes. So yes, you can have a barbecue, Sandy.
You're going to throw your
Well, like I
legal
said,
disclaimer.
you've got to give me the you've got to submit a COVID safe plan, and you've got to have a marshal who's going to watch your event, and you've got to have, restrictions on who's preparing and distributing the food. And you really shouldn't. And they were aghast at the idea of picnic games, like I sort of said, like a tug of war and stuff like that. And they said, unless people are 1.5 meters apart on the road, they don't think that would be a very good idea.
Yep. Just read local restrictions. Honestly, the best thing to
I
do
try to
is
keep
read.
that. That's pretty much. Like I said, we're at level 1 restrictions at the moment. So. And the web link for the COVID line is on that page in the geocaching reviewer. We've got the local policy for South Australia.
That's awesome. Excellent. All right. Kitty Catch, thank you. I'm glad you have enjoyed tonight's discussion. And thank you to all viewers who are live. Thank you for respectful questions and being respectful to our lovely guests who have taken the time out of their day to come onto the podcast and hopefully provide us all with a little bit more information so that we are better prepared and we can hide better quality caches and provide the information to the reviewers so we don't get that frustrating back and forwards that we all try to avoid so much. So thank you, everyone. That has been awesome. Now, fellas, stay with me. I'm going to move on to our next section, which is the photo comp of the month. So everyone stay put. And we will move on to the next section.
Do you think I've got a chance, do you reckon? What for? How about the calendar photo of the month? Let's see this month's winner.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that intro, C. Michelle. Very much appreciated. Okay, so this month we had quite a few entries into the photo comp as well. So thank you very much for everyone who submitted and or voted. Check out our Facebook page. You can see all the entries. It is pinned to the top of the page so you can see this month. But this month's winner is, let me just get prepped here. So this month winner is Sheridan Davis. Congratulations, Sheridan. That is awesome. That is your picture there. So you are welcome. Hopefully you will buy a calendar and you can see that one in the 2022 GDU calendar. So this one is titled, what is it titled? It is titled Consulting with the Deaf Caches, and this one was taken recently in the Queensland Outback Geocaching Muster in the Peru Shire in Western Queensland. So this was taken during a 4-wheel drive night caching trek. It looks like a fantastic adventure, and I love all the colours and the movement in this picture. So thank you very much, Sheridan, for submitting that one. You'll be able to see your picture in the calendar. And let me get rid of that there for you. So I know I have been slack this month, but I will get the next photo comp picture up on the Facebook page so you can all submit your entries into the next photo comp. If you would like to contact us, though, you can do so through email. So all you got to do is send me an email at geocachingdownunder@gmail.com. Let me know if there is a specific topic or a guest that you would like discussed or talked about, and I will do my best to bring that to you. And let's get on to the next section, which I think is probably most people's favorite. It is prize time. So let's get on to the prizes.
Oh, say, can you see? PCE, I heard that geostuff.com.au, that's right, geostuff.com.au is your main sponsor. How cool are they? Thank you so much to John and Di from geostuff.com.au. I heard you got some prizes this month. Let's get to the prizes.
Excellent. Thanks again, SMS. Really appreciate that. And thank you to all the live viewers for joining us live. Really appreciate your support. And now we have a prize from the lovely folks at geostuff.com.au. So this month there is 2 prizes. If you've been paying attention to our socials, you would have seen them posted late last week. But prize number 1, let me put that on the screen there for you so you can see what you're all playing for. There it is there. The 20 years Project Ape GeoCoin. So one lucky person will win this GeoCoin. So that is the coin there. Now, to win that GeoCoin, what I'm going to need everyone to do is get ready with fast fingers in the comments section. Hopefully you've been paying attention to the whole program. And I want to know, what date did Tchingal become a reviewer? We did talk about it earlier in the show. Put your answers into the comments. Go, go, go. I want to know, what date did Tchingal become a reviewer? So hopefully you are paying attention and you know the answers. I will settle for month and year. Doesn't have to be the exact date. I wouldn't expect you to remember it that well. But month and year, whoever gets the closest, pop it into the chat room there. So that is good. I can see some questions coming through now. So let me just put on some thinking music while you all get your answers in. First one to answer correct or near enough will be the winner of this awesome 20 years Ape Cache Geo coin. So let me pop that on the screen there. This is what you're all playing for.
Oh, close.
There. I want to know what date did Tchingal become?
No, we have a winner.
There we go. Looks like we've got a winner already. Now, let me just go back through the comments here. Let me just make sure I've got the right date. Looks to me. Wow, very quick there, very quick. Looks like to me it was Elizabeth Lewis. So thank you very much, Elizabeth Lewis. You were correct. Awesome work. All right, Elizabeth, I will be in touch with you and get you that coin on the way. So thank you very much, Elizabeth. Now for prize number two. Here it is here. Prize number 2 is Hider A Cache Kit. It is a small. So you get the Systema container, you get the Write in the Rain logbook, you get a pencil, you get a travel bug, a little compass, and you also get the First to Find coin token there, and also the geocaching logo pin. So this is prize number 2. So once again, get ready in the chat room. I have a question for you. You are very welcome, Elizabeth. You treasure that coin. Alrighty, here is the question I want to know to win that Hider's kit. Okay. Wasn't mentioned in the show, so hopefully you know your rules. In New South Wales urban areas, how many hours time difference is required between the end of one event and the start of another if the two events are within 30 kilometres of each other? I'll read that one.
If only there was a wiki to find out that kind of answer.
Yeah.
That's right. If only there was. But, maybe someone should have thought of that earlier. Oh, dear. Let me put up that wiki there. So if you are not aware, that is a very convoluted question. So let me pop that there. I'll read the question again. Alrighty, so in New South Wales urban areas, how many hours time difference is required between the end of one event and the start of another if the two events are within 30 kilometres of each other? So,
I'll go with a 6-pack.
Alrighty, let me see.
Somebody's throwing darts at a wall by the look of things.
Alrighty, I am going back to the first of that one there. Hopefully you're all paying attention. Looks like I've got a winner, so congratulations. I believe you were first. Suzanne Gardner, congratulations. That is correct. It is a 4-hour time difference between the end of one event and the start of another if it is within 30 kilometres of each other. So congratulations, Suzanne. I will be in contact with you after the show and get out that small Hider caching kit to you, which is that one there. So you get all of that there on the screen, and that will be coming to you very shortly. So once again, congratulations. Keep an eye on the letterbox for that one. There we go. Alrighty, so that is the end of the prizes. We will be in touch with people who won, so thank you very much. And if you aren't already, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, especially in YouTube. There you go. Join us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget to write in with your stories and or your questions anytime. You can do that via our email address, which is here at geocachingdownunder@gmail.com. Is that there? Thank you very much. Okay, massive thanks to our sponsors, Lainey at LK Consulting Group for the marketing, mentoring, and also the, where is it? I just lost it. Coaching program. That's it. geostuff.com.au for our monthly prizes and support. Thank you very much. Special thanks to my mum for her support, helping to pay for some of the cost of bringing the show to you every month. That is awesome. Now, quick shout out from our predecessor here.
Just before you leave, PC, I've got to say this to all those out there listening. A big thank you so much for continuation of your support for the Geocaching Down Under podcast. I think Purple Cache Eater, or as I call her, PCE, is doing an absolutely fantastic job. Now, if you think she's doing a very fantastic job as well, and as you should, then maybe you can skip one coffee a month and have a look at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/geocaching down under. If it's not that, then she'll put the link there somewhere. So make sure you go to Patreon at like $3 a month, less than a cup of coffee, and you can help support this particular good old Down Under Australian podcast. I know I'm a Patreon.
Awesome. Thanks, SMS. Really appreciate that. So that is the Patreon address there, www.patreon.com/GDU podcast. You can donate. We have a few different levels there, so as little as $3 and all the way up to $11, up to you. Quick Patreon shout out to all of my current Patreons. Thank you very much for the support. We have See My Shell all the way from America, Kitty Catch, Green Cordial, Kingfisher AU, Snappy Tomcats, Julie, Darren Archer, Captain Roverman, DTY, Wollaston, Banj 5150, Jamie Backwards, and Houston, Texas Dave, all the way from Texas in America. Thank you very much. Couldn't do the show without you. Really appreciate it. So once again, thank you so much for being here live, and thank you to all the replay viewers and listeners. Really appreciate your support. You can watch the replay on YouTube or listen via podcast apps such as Spotify. You can also listen on Anchor as well. So the next show will be coming to you on December 14th. So that will be still in Daylight Savings Time, 7:30 Daylight Savings Time. So thank you very much. So one quick goodbye from all of us. And hope you enjoyed the night. Hopefully you found it informative and have learned some things and now know how to be a better hider. And once again, thank you, all three of you, very special guests. I really appreciate you coming on and putting a face to the reviewers' names and really giving us some information that we can all learn from. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
No problem. It's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Well, everyone, enjoy your night, and we will see you next month.
Okay.
Done. Excellent. Okay, let's see who's in the chat room. Who's still hanging around? Oh, there you go. Thanks, Darren. Best show ever. Darren Archer.
What's up there, Andrew?
Sorry?
What's up there? You keep staring at the ceiling.
Scott, is that what it was? I wasn't sure how that would work. The camera's lower than on the screen. I've got two
If
screens.
you're trying to look at my pants or something from there.
I was wondering about that.
Screen, isn't it?
I was too terrified if I moved the screen, it would drop out. I can try again. I might drop out. There we go. So,
that's
probably
awesome.
where I should. Oh, well. I've just got that away with the birds look.
Thanks, Ozfox. Glad you enjoyed the show. Hopefully it was informative for you. And thank you, Matt. Yes, keep an eye on the wiki. There'll be some guidance coming in the coming weeks. So thank you very much. Thanks, Di. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching live. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed the night. Team Casho, thank you very much. Thanks to all the reviewers for the extra work in the background. Go, Team Casho. One of the coolest avatars I've seen. Dave, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks, Melissa. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Lainey, watching us on YouTube. That's awesome. Thank you. And Sandy, yes, got some questions answered. So you are welcome, Sandy. Thank you.
Good.
Oh, look out. Found it. Podcast is still here. That's awesome, mate. Thank you for joining us. My goodness, it's getting into your day now. Isn't it? That's awesome. Thank you, Suzanne, and congratulations on the win. That's awesome. And Elizabeth, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
The t-shirt's not for sale. Not for sale.
$10.
$10, geez, that's a bit much. Hey, you could eBay it for 50.
I reckon so.
Yeah.
Thanks, D2Y. Really appreciate it. And Patrick, yes, it is always nice to hear different reviewers and had different rules around the world. So thank you for tuning in. That's really cool. Thank you. Heather, thank you. Glad you enjoyed the show. Kirsten, thank you for joining us. That's awesome. Thank you. There you go. 11:05, just coming up to lunchtime. And there you go. Andrew Bush reckons it was worth a try.
Yep.
Try. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, if there is no more questions, I will leave everybody. Oh, Darkside Dan. Must have been lurking in the shadows there. Thank you very much. Oh, John from Geo Stuff. You are very welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. All right. Well, it is getting on now, so I will let everybody go. So enjoy the rest of your night. And as I say, we will see you all in December. And once again, reviewers, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
That's good.